I know. I have whole videos about how my husband and I decided to save sex for marriage and why we're glad we did. And here I am posting a video that says why you should not save yourself for marriage, and you shouldn't. Here's why. Welcome back to another episode of Life Advice You Don't Hear in Church. My name's Tiffany Dawn, and hit subscribe to see more videos like this. Okay, so for any of you who have not heard this term before, saving yourself for marriage is a phrase people say in a lot of conservative circles. I've said it myself growing up, and what it means is waiting to have sex when you get married. So saving yourself for marriage, guys, I hate that term so much. And here's why. I've learned in recent years that what we say can often communicate things we don't intend. It can mean more than we think it means. And I think this phrase, saving yourself, means a whole lot more, insinuates a whole lot more than we intend, and is extremely unhealthy and unhelpful. Here are 3 things that phrase, save yourself for marriage, communicates. Number 1, it gives the idea that yourself, your worth, your identity as a human, it's all tied into your sexual experience, your sexual past, your sexuality. Like those, yourself and sex are equal in this idea, because it's this idea of saving sex for marriage, but we say save yourself. So yourself is equal to sex, and that is just so inaccurate. It's so inaccurate, and it puts so much pressure on our sexual experience, our sexual pasts, whereas that's just one small part of who we are as a person. And it's a beautiful part of our sexuality, but it's just one small part. It's not yourself. Yourself is so much more. What you bring to a relationship is so much more than your body, so much more than your sexuality, so much more than your past. It's who you are. Here's the second thing that it insinuates. It gives the idea that we need to be emotionally unavailable until we're married. So the idea of yourself, you as a whole person being saved toward marriage, brings a whole lot of other ideas, like emotionally, you can't get too connected to people. You shouldn't be praying with people who aren't your spouse. Who are the opposite gender. You shouldn't be getting too invested emotionally in a relationship. You shouldn't get your heart broken. All these things, and none of those are true. None of those are biblical ideas. In fact, they can make it harder to get married because we're so concerned with holding ourselves back that we're not bringing ourselves into a relationship with a potential guy who we might really like to be with down the road. You need to bring yourself into relationships. Don't hold yourself back waiting until you get married. Be yourself now. It's okay to get emotionally invested. Yeah, you want to make sure you can trust people first. That's another story for another time. You want to be sure someone's trustworthy of the level of intimacy you're sharing with them, but you don't have to hold back yourself until you get married. And the third reason I don't like that phrase is because it almost gives this idea of sex being an on-off switch. Like it's off till you get married and it's on when you get married. And sexuality does not begin on when you say I do. You are already a sexual being, and God designed you that way. I think of sexuality as more of like a dimmer switch. We have in our family room, there's the lights, on the dimmer. So you turn the knob and it slowly gets brighter and brighter. And that's how I think of sex as, not on off, but this idea of like you slowly grow into it. And for James and I, like for example, everybody's boundaries when they're dating are different. That's totally fine. It's what you feel comfortable with and convicted about. But for us, like we made out when we were dating. We loved making out when we were dating. And I do not regret that even a little tiny bit, because it was that dimmer switch. So it wasn't like nothing, everything overnight. It was like this slowly gradual building, and we saved sex for marriage. We waited to have sex when we got married, but we slowly built our physical relationship too as we became more and more serious and got engaged and we're planning our life together. And so I think of it as a dimmer and not as an on-off switch. And those are the reasons why I hate that term, save yourself for marriage. In fact, I think it's led us to become so obsessed with virginity that it's like we think of it as like, this is the most important thing I can do for my future marriage is save my virginity for my husband. And not only is that not true, I mean, it's wonderful if you save that for your husband. That's great. That's what my husband and I decided to do. We're glad we did. But that is not the most important thing you can do for your future marriage. For your future marriage, you want to be growing like How responsible are you? Do you know how to show commitment? Do you know how to talk through tough issues? Like, there's a lot more than just sex in a marriage relationship. Sex is a beautiful part of it, but it is not what marriage is all about. And it almost gives us this idea, this saving yourself for marriage. It's like sex, 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 sex. Like, this is the greatest part of marriage. This is why we get married. Like, we get to have sex now. This is what's different. And it puts these unrealistic expectations of this amazing sexual experience that we've waited for our whole lives. And this is like the epitome of marriage. Guys, like, there's a lot more to marriage than sex. Sex is awesome, a great part of it. It is something you learn and grow into. Again, that dimmer switch analogy, the more you practice, the better you get. You don't have to practice with other people. You don't have to practice before your marriage to have great sex, but it is a process, a gradual thing you grow into. And it would be a lot easier to grow into. It'd be a lot easier to bring our whole selves into our marriage if we didn't equate our self and our worth with sex and virginity. So please, can we stop saying I'm saving myself for marriage? And instead, if you're waiting to have sex when you get married, just think of it like that. I'm waiting to have sex when I get married. Plain and simple. But don't save yourself till then. Comment below, what do you think of this idea? I love you guys. Bye.